In December of 2020, the gaming industry witnessed one of its worst releases, but instead of being abandoned, the developers quietly reworked the entire game. Today, we're finding out the why, the 11 reasons Cyberpunk 2077 was able to achieve its 6-year redemption arc, and why their upcoming projects prove that they're only just getting started. Night City, the city of dreams, the city that never sleeps. On the surface, Night City is this massive, futuristic sprawl defined by vibrant neon signs and mesmerizing buildings. Its aesthetics pull you in immediately. You can find endless videos of people just touring the districts of Night City because the architecture and aesthetics are just that great. But that beauty is a facade. Living in Night City is a brutal struggle for survival. The power dynamics are distributed in the worst way possible. At the lowest level, desperate street gangs will rob you or kill you without a second thought. And at the highest levels, megacorporations like Arasaka operate with absolute power, willing to betray or kill anyone to advance their goals. There is zero moral authority here, with corrupt politicians sitting at the bottom of the food chain. This world does not care about you, and it actively shows you that nobody gets a happy ending. But that indifference is what makes the game work. It creates a setting for unforgettable activities and stories. Every district has its own unique, distinct personality, unique origins, and ongoing conflicts. The game excels at making you feel like you're discovering dark secrets or walking into active war zones just by crossing the street. One minute you're rushing a guy to a Ripper dock because his black market cybernetics got fried. The next, you're acting as a CIA agent trying to unravel a massive corporate conspiracy. The storytelling is wide, from grand heists to the lowest, most personal losses. And unlike other games that shy away from mature themes to avoid backlash, Night City shows you that raw, unfiltered reality of its world. Surviving in a place this oppressive feels like a victory. Even when the game was at its lowest at launch, the world was just too fascinating to forget. The bugs and broken promises were devastating, but the city itself kept players holding on to a sliver of hope. This setting makes you care, and it's one of the main reasons the game is still popular to this day. Night City and its advertisements are two sides of the same coin. These advertisements aren't just generic background images pasted on the walls. They have character and marketing campaigns that have deliberate artistic goal, which adds to the game's immersion. The visual style of these ads can be summed up to one word: extreme. They're hypersexualized, violently grotesque, and they don't hold back. They're eye-catching by design, whether you're sitting on your apartment, driving your car, or just walking down the streets. These advertisements aggressively demand your attention, with most preying on the fears and the wants of the citizens of Night City. You can never escape them. They represent a terrifying vision of the future, where no government body exists to keep these advertisers in check. They will gladly invade on your most quiet moments, constantly reminding you of their presence. Even when you do try to look away, their striking visuals are so impactful, it almost forces you to pay attention. This constant bombardment even works on you as the player. You don't need to read pages of lore to understand the corruption this has on society. The ads reveal a complete lack of human apathy and the absolute monopolies these corporations hold on everyday life. It feels genuinely dystopian when you realize how similar this looks to the Times Square in New York. When you first step out of V's apartment, you're instantly hit by a wall of flashing neon billboards advertising all sorts of products. It serves as an immediate statement that the moment you walk into Night City, these corporations control you. They dictate your attention, influence how you feel, and remind you at every corner that they own everything around you. This aggressive marketing makes the environment feel immersive, while simultaneously cementing just how oppressive corporations are on the regular citizen. Diving deeper into how Night City works makes you realize something. Cyberpunk feels so real because it serves as a direct reflection of our own future. It mirrors our world, one increasingly dominated by smart algorithms engineered to hack your attention, and one that is actively seeing the development of smarter AI. In a twisted sense, our own future is beginning to look more and more like Cyberpunk. But the game presents a much more depressing outlook on this future. Incredible technological advancements exist, like flying cars and advanced AI, but they don't result in a utopia. Instead, they're abused by the 1%. The ruling class weaponizes these tools not to solve world hunger, but to exploit the working class with 100% efficiency. The game introduces the ultimate expression of this corporate greed with one concept: the total control over death itself. These corporations have no boundaries. They're willing to digitally trap your soul if it means gaining power. In Night City, you can't even die in peace. Corporations like Arasaka will gladly cage your consciousness, sell it, or exploit it for eternity. They want everything, and that includes you. This framework transforms the game into a brilliant piece of dystopian horror. Beneath the cool cars and the vibrant neon aesthetics, Cyberpunk is basically a horror story. It taps directly into the existential dread of losing autonomy over your own body. You're constantly threatened with the idea of losing your identity to a city that does not care. It forces players to treat the world with respect, instilling a creeping realization that this dystopian vision of the future could actually happen. This concept was perfectly encapsulated in Sinnerman, a questline involving a death row inmate who finds religion and wishes to be publicly crucified to atone for his sins. But instead of paying respects, a megacorporation films the execution and broadcasts the crucifixion as premium braindance per profit. It's a raw, unfiltered dystopian horror, showcasing a future entirely stripped of its humanity. While dystopian horror is the most dominant form in Night City, Cyberpunk introduces a second, equally terrifying genre: cosmic horror. But it does this through a unique, modern sci-fi lens with the introduction of the Blackwall. The Blackwall stands as a massive digital barrier holding back a swarm of rogue AI, determined to break through and consume humanity. It acts as the singular wall separating society from eternal digital suffering. Traditional cosmic horror, like Lovecraftian eldritch monsters, rely on ancient magic and the fundamentally uncomprehendable. You're not supposed to understand these entities because comprehending them is designed to shatter your mind. But the Black Wall is terrifying for the exact opposite reason. It's a synthetic threat that humans built. Humanity created these initial AI systems, but they evolved so rapidly and mutated so horribly that it became something completely beyond our control or comprehension. Today in real life, tech companies constantly compete to develop the next smartest AI generator, pushing the boundaries to secure a much larger profit. Blackwall serves as a grim cautionary tale about what happens when humanity creates technology that thinks and adapts entirely on its own without care, proving to us just how deep the universe of Cyberpunk really is. For years after the launch, even though Cyberpunk had a good story, its gameplay was just too hard to ignore, and over time, the game faded into obscurity. But then, Cyberpunk Edgerunners happened. This anime acted as the catalyst that completely reversed the franchise's downward trajectory. Before the show aired, the general consensus of the game was that it was a broken mess. Edgerunners sparked a massive shift in players' sentiment. It proved to the general audience that the Cyberpunk universe possessed more depth that deserved a second chance. Through its compelling characters, the show developed a newfound love for the dystopian city that is Night City by following the tragic arcs of David, Lucy, and their crew. The anime made the city's hostility personal. It forced the community to look past the launch glitches and see the game for its original vision. Public opinion pivoted from the title being a broken game to more about mourning it as a tragic masterpiece that missed its potential. More importantly for the game, Edgerunners created a bridge of shared trauma. When Atom Smasher executed the beloved cast on screen, it provided a massive emotional boost to the game's player base, with some actively reinstalling the game with a single objective: hunting down Atom Smasher to exact revenge. The developers recognized this momentum and honored it by adding the over-the-edge side quest, letting V discover David's final brain dance and reclaim Rebecca's shotgun. It served as a homage that proved that the studio was paying attention, but Edgerunners only revived the game minorly in terms of pure player count, but that didn't matter. It executed the most important pivot of the redemption arc. It stopped the downward spiral and pointed the franchise's trajectory straight up. Even when the game was technically unplayable at launch, the character writing remained so human that the specific players that actually looked past the bugs found themselves emotionally attached. This emotional core to me is anchored by one character, Johnny Silverhand. Johnny is an arrogant, narcissistic rocker boy and a terrorist who detonated a nuclear bomb inside Arasaka Tower. Now, his consciousness is forever trapped inside your head. He constantly debates your own morality and changes your worldview. Johnny understands that megacorporations are so needlessly greedy that they will strip away your body and cage your soul, and he refuses to let you forget that. What begins as a bitter, forced relationship defined by the desperation of dying slowly evolves into a profoundly deep friendship. That shared desperation creates an incredibly compelling dynamic. Unlike other RPGs like Fallout that stumble when giving the protagonist a voice, V emerges as a brilliant character. V is vulnerable, desperate, and brings a distinct personality that makes the race against time feel very personal. The life paths enhance this further. Choosing the corporal background, for example, gives V first-hand insider knowledge into how ruthless the corporations truly are. The supporting cast elevates the narrative just as much, with characters like Panam, Judy, and Carrie feeling like actual people with their own personal lives. Their existence doesn't revolve around you. They carry their own trauma and personal struggles, which grounds you even further in the harsh reality that is living in Night City. The Phantom Liberty DLC pushed this standard even higher by introducing characters like Solomon Reed and Songbird, layering on complex themes of undercover espionage and government loyalty. But also, the casting of Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba never felt like a cheap PR stunt. Both characters delivered a fully fleshed out performance that created interesting and compelling characters. If Edgerunners repaired the franchise's reputation, Update 2 and Phantom Liberty executed the actual gameplay rework that saved the overall experience. This was the definitive turning point. Before the 2.0 update, the core systems of the game were deeply flawed. The combat, level scaling, and perk trees felt clunky and rushed. The 2.0 patch completely replaced them with an overhauled system. This massive free update introduced a complete perk rework, integrated vehicle combat, and fundamentally changed the balance of the game. The developers even implemented a fully realized MCPD chase system, culminating in the terrifying max stack encounters once you hit 5 stars. These were fundamentally changing systems that transformed Night City into an actual enjoyable experience. Then came Phantom Liberty. This expansion never felt like a disconnected side quest detached from the core narrative. It actively tied back into V's desperate race against death, expanding the base game while still pushing the narrative. The level design and density of the new zones provided an incredible backdrop for the narrative to unfold. Most importantly, these changes allowed the developers to earn back the public's trust through action. Instead of abandoning the project after disastrous launch, they put their heads down, invested the necessary resources, and delivered the climax the game deserved. The narrative payoff in Phantom Liberty relies on the weight of your choices. When the branching path forces you to choose between betraying Songbird or siding with her, there's no morally correct option. You're just forced to pick the outcome that you hate the least. It perfectly bridges player agency, proving the writers had truly mastered their craft. The lore in Cyberpunk is very dense and fleshed out. The setting is filled with history, ranging from massive corporate conspiracies to year-long rivalries. There's always a reason for why the events unfold the way that they do. You can easily fall down a multi-hour rabbit hole researching the history of a mega corporation like Militech and still barely scratch the surface of all the available material. With the Cyberpunk franchise being around 38 years old, Night City feels real because it's not just a random map generated the second you hit new game. The city has survived massive espionages and multiple corporate wars. It was originally built as a haven to escape corporate overlords, but history has a dark way of saying no to that ideal. Players are dropped directly into the middle of the history. When Saburo Arasaka dies in Arasaka Tower, it's simply the latest murder in an unending chain of disastrous events. This is what makes every single hotspot in Night City memorable. Understanding the tragic backstory of Pacifica completely changes how you view its ruined architecture, because you know exactly how and why that district fell apart. This level of death is what keeps players engaged in the lore for years. Even seemingly bizarre side content rewards players who dig into the lore. Cybernetics hold a visual and thematic appeal to Cyberpunk. Equipping high-tech hardware looks sick, and unsheathing a monowire from your wrist feels inherently cool. But cybernetics are a double-edged blade. You're fundamentally chopping off your own limbs to replace them with machines. Body modification in this universe pushes your flesh to the extreme. The game shows you the endpoint of this obsession through characters like Atom Smasher, a ruthless cyborg who has sacrificed nearly every part of his humanity for power. Gameplay-wise, cybernetics inject a lot of variety into the fights. Installing different hardware dictates how you engage with the world, transforming you from a vulnerable mercenary into a one-man army by the endgame. Whether you're opening a locked door with gorilla arms, deploying mantis blades for close quarters combat, or slicing enemies apart with monowire, the progression feels deeply satisfying. However, the narrative constantly reminds you that every piece of metal you push into your body strips away at your sanity in the Edgerunners anime. The show made the existential dread of cyberpsychosis very clear. You watch as characters trade pieces of their sanity for every new piece of chrome that they install, slowly losing control over their own bodies. Seeing that loss of humanity on screen completely recontextualizes how you experience it in the game. Suddenly, modifying your body felt terrifying because the anime showed you exactly what that power actually costs you. The introduction of different cybernetics and unique weapons add into another massive pillar of this redemption arc: build diversity. The sheer variety of gameplay archetypes allow you to carve out your own specific identity in Night City. You're no longer forced down a linear shooter guy archetype. Instead, the game allows you to roleplay as a cyber assassin, a gunslinger, a long-range sniper, or a heavy solo brute. The game grants you freedom of choice that made everything viable. You can even make hybrid builds, blending the fast-paced action of a gunslinger with the calculated precision of a netrunner. The game actively rewards your experimentation. This build diversity single-handedly improved the game's replayability tenfold. The moment you finish a playthrough, you instantly feel the urge to roll a brand new character just to test the complete opposite playstyle you were using before. Because different builds rely on different combat mechanics, they alter how that moment-to-moment gameplay feels. You get to fully realize and live out a very specific combat fantasy. Ultimately, Update 2.0 allowed this to happen, elevating Cyberpunk from a standard action shooter into a true RPG. It created a playground where you can genuinely roleplay your ideal character and shape exactly how you engage with the dangers of society. The redemption of Cyberpunk isn't done. It extends to its future. The developers genuinely believed in their vision, and as a result, the franchise has been aggressively expanding its media to other places, with collaborations with major external IPs like Guilty Gear and Wuthering Waves. The universe is rapidly growing, and with a new highly anticipated second season of Edgerunners already about to release in the fall of 2026, it's mind-blowing to consider a game once dismissed as a broken, unplayable mess has successfully successfully transitioned into a multimedia franchise. This comeback story will be studied by the industry for decades. It proves a fundamental rule: if you stand by your game and put in relentless hard work, you will see results. Because of this effort, the studio has fully earned the right to develop the sequel, codenamed Project Orion. The announcement of a new game doesn't feel like a desperate attempt to run away from a failed launch. It feels earned. They're building a sequel because they successfully concluded the first chapter in their own terms, completing the story they set out to tell. Cyberpunk has proven its cultural staying power, officially cementing itself in sci-fi history alongside genre giants like Blade Runner. Cyberpunk 2077's legendary redemption arc was never just for the sake of profit. It stands as a statement to the sheer quality and believability of the world they built. Yes, the developers put their head down, patched the bugs, overhauled the perks, and fixed the broken mechanics. But those technical fixes don't just salvage a dead franchise. The soul of the game is what ultimately saved it. If Cyberpunk lacked the oppressive beauty of Night City, or its incredibly dense lore, or the deeply compelling characters, it would have just been an alright experience. Instead, it became something truly great. It leveraged its dystopian future and deep narrative to pull players back in and refused to let them go.